In today's show, the Blazers announced their new TV deal, and it's going to be easier to watch them finally. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we got real news you can use, and not just transactional Blazers stuff, but the team is going to be easier to watch for you, assuming you live in Portland, in Oregon or Washington, but not too far east in the state. Then it's going to get a little bit dicey, but even then it might be a little bit easier than it once was. The team officially announced their new television deal and their new plan to make it easier for you, the viewer, to watch them, or at least give you more options to do so, including a free over-the-air product. We'll talk about that then in the second segment and third segment. Close the show. We'll do some little mini continuing our season previews, talking Rob Williams and Duop Reath, talking two Blazers big men, Rob Will, the Time Lord, and Duop, wop. Let's talk television deal to begin with, though. This is good news. This was the news when it was first reported that the Blazers had ditched Root Sports and they were going to go to over-the-air products. It was inevitable that they were going to get a digital, some sort of digital package. It's what the Utah Jazz did. It's what the Phoenix Suns did. It's what the Clippers did with ClipperVision. It was just a question of if they would get it rolled out for this season, and they have. So here's the deal with the Blazers. They're going to be broadcast in Portland on K2 and throughout the region on Sinclair Broadcasting, Sinclair Networks, wherever you are. That includes the Seattle area. That includes Eugene. That includes Medford. That includes Yakima, Pasco. It does not include Deschutes County. So if you are a homie in Prineville or Redmond or Bend, shout out to Sam and Bend, yeah, you're going to have to go another way, and we'll talk about it the other way. It's not really in Eastern Washington. You're not going to be able to watch this in Spokane, but over the air available for much of Washington and much of Oregon, the vast majority of Oregon, except for basically Deschutes County. Over the air, free to watch with the bunny ears. Go get yourself an antenna and go watch it. But also, if you subscribe to a streaming service that has, local channels, you'll get Blazer games. They will be included. I guess that's not free because you already are paying for another service, but they would be, I've been a bunny ears sports viewer in my life. I watched a lot of SEC football on CBS and a lot of Cash Cab. You kind of watch what you get, but now you watch what you get will include Blazer games. You'll get pre and post game shows from Blazer Broadcasting, and I'm sure K2 will have some of their own. Blazer Broadcasting is owned by the team, it's a separate entity, and I'm sure K2 will have some programming around, or the Sinclair Networks, family of networks, will have some programming around it. Certainly Portland and K2, they will. We'll see what they do in the rest of the locations. So free over the air. We kind of knew that it was coming, but we didn't know who the partner was going to be. It's going to be the Sinclair Broadcasting Group. On a personal level, but great. It'll be very easy to watch, and my preferences for media conglomerates are not important. But this is a big deal, right? This is a big deal and important, and you'll be able to watch it. Before that, or in the other alternative to that, is that there is a digital package. So you get the over-the-air network, you get the over-the-air TV, television, broadcast television right there in your homes. But if you are in Oregon or in Washington, you can subscribe to BlazersVision. It has been resurrected and is $120 a year. That's an annual price, or $19.99 a month beginning October 1st. Then you can pay $19 a month or $120 a year, and you can get it digitally. You can get it digital. It's what they call over-the-top OTT streaming service from BlazersVision. This is going to be a good deal. I think $120 is pretty reasonable. Now, if you have to pay for other TV and you have to add another service, $120 is not nothing. But this is a decent option because one, you just get a digital subscription and access to it. So otherwise, like if you're in Deschutes County, you're blacked out from Blazer games on NBA League Pass, so you can't watch them. But you could buy BlazersVision to be able to watch Blazer games, even if it isn't available over the air. Two, BlazersVision is going to be available for travel, so you could leave if you sign up for it in your local network once you're eligible for it, and then like say you're on the road visiting family or whatever over the winter holidays or what have you, or literally any time during the season. If you want to go on spring break as well, you can sign into your BlazersVision account and watch Blazer games while you're on the road. This is crucial because Root Sports didn't let you do that. They didn't have that app that let you go places, so you couldn't get back into watching it if like you were a service you paid for when you're out of your house. That's going to be great. BlazersVision doesn't have DVR, which is not ideal, but the games will be available once they end. After 60 minutes after the game ends, you can go back and watch the game. So it's like you still have to, it's not perfect where you could record and like jump in late. You'll have to watch live. That's not ideal, but it kind of is what it is. If you're out of market and you're out of the broadcast area, you can just watch the Blazers on League Pass. But for those of you in market that need options over the air and with this digital package, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. Why the Blazers announced it at 8:15 p.m. on a Monday night, we will never know. We will truly never know why they chose to roll this out in the manner that they did. But you were listening to Tuesday's September 24th show, and on Monday evening at about 8:15, the Blazers made this announcement. They teased it on social media at like 5 o'clock, and it was the social media post went live right at 5, very clearly scheduled posts with the little BlazersVision jumping around, like bringing you back to the old days. BlazersVision harkens back to a time before I lived in Portland, so I don't know old BlazersVision. I'm only gonna know new BlazersVision, which is this streaming platform that you'll be able to watch Blazer games. Why they chose to do it at 8:15 on a Monday night? They do stuff weird. I always mention it here. This is another really weird one. This is a big thing that they should have put out when we were awake and at work or whatever. Now, people are awake at 8:15, but really funny rollout of it. But this is good news. This is good news. This makes it simpler to watch if you're in market. It makes it simpler to watch if, it gives you some better options, right? Like the world is still so stratified and there's a million streaming services like the digital, I guess the world in general, but I was specifically talking about like digital media world, still so stratified and so many streaming subscriptions that you have to pay for if you want to watch all your stuff, and you have family that want to watch all their stuff too. But, if you're in market, being able to watch this with like a basic antenna connection, or like most smart TVs will have over the air access, so you don't even need to go out and buy the antenna. But there is something charming about standing in your living room and like moving a little bit so you get the good picture. But you're gonna get HD quality right over the air. It's probably gonna be better streaming quality than Root ever was, because Root was a freaking nightmare. And this digital package, if you're in market but don't have access to it, or you just want the digital package because of the way you watch TV, like your consumption habits and those type of things, and you want to be able to watch the games on replay and watch them when you're on the road, this is good stuff. We kind of knew this was the way the Blazers were likely to head. I think particularly when the Kraken announced something very similar, and was like, yeah, this is the way they're going to go. The Kraken, the NHL team based in Seattle. It's like you kind of knew that this was likely to happen, but I think this is good news, and this is something to celebrate in the sort of Blazer fandom world. Wahoo! It's going to be easier to watch games. If you live out of market, NBA League Pass is still your best bet. And League Pass is not super duper cheap, but it's certainly a decent deal. Particularly if you're a big NBA fan, it's not an ideal app. I'm sure BlazersVision will have some bumps along the way, but the Blazers in their current form being easier to watch is really good news, because no one was going to seek out this team. No one is going to chase it down. So having them come into your homes in a much easier way is going to be a win for everyone. Kudos to the Blazers for getting this right, except for the part where they announced it at 8:15 on a Monday night. What kind of weird news dump is that, y'all? What the hell is happening? Okay, that's your news for today. I had another show planned, but we went this way. So what we're going to do is that show will be tomorrow, and we're going to do mini previews to close the show. They're going to be full-size previews, but instead of a larger show, they're going to be it'll be two segments. Let's talk Robert Williams, and then we'll talk Duop Reath. Join me in that second segment, won't ya? We're talking Blazers big men and what they're going to bring to the team this season. First, though, I want to tell you about Gametime, the place for last-minute tickets, the service that rewards you for procrastinating. If you are someone who's like, maybe I'll go to the game. I don't know. Maybe I will. Make sure you have the Gametime app downloaded because you can get up to 60% off the ticket price when you buy last-minute tickets on Gametime. Not just sporting events, but comedy, live theater, concerts, whatever you're looking for. For me, I'm mostly checking out sporting events. And what I like about Gametime, super clean app, super easy to use. Couple clicks, you pull up the venue that you're looking for. And then I toggle on the all-in pricing. I'm a toggler. I'm toggling on all-in pricing. So then what you see is what you get. If it says it's going to cost you $54, it's going to cost you $54. Plus, you can click right on your little seat in the app, and you can get a panoramic view to say, like, what's it going to look like if I sit here? What is the view from the field or view of the court going to look like if I sit here? And the app is super intuitive, super clean, super easy to use. A couple clicks, and you will get everything you possibly need to know. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, let's keep it rocking with some previews here. Being able to watch Blazer games easier is a true victory. Another true victory is the Blazers have great depth up front. Is that a transition that I planned? Absolutely not, but there's where we made it. We're continuing our season previews. We're running through every player on the roster, giving you a brief but thorough look at what they'll bring to the Blazers. We'll talk about how they arrived in the team last year, what they did last season, best and worst case scenarios, and role and expectations. We're rolling along with these. According to my handy-dandy notebook here, we've only got, after tonight, 3 players left. That's meaning we've done 12. I'm not going to do the two-way guys. Maybe I'll talk about the two-way guys separately, but I'm not going to do a full show on the two-way guys. So all 15 players on the roster, we're making it happen. If you've missed any of them, they're in your feed. If you're a YouTube viewer, there's a playlist, season previews. If you are a audio listener, all the episodes are labeled season previews. Go back and check them out. Evergreen content, good for your ears as we ramp up to the season, which starts so stinking soon, less than a week away from the Blazers, practicing together, and then we're closing in about 3 weeks away from real preseason basketball. It's kicking off in Seattle, Washington. What we're gonna do? We're playing big tonight. We're talking Rob Williams. I'm recording it in the night. You're listening in the morning because you're making this your first listen. I'm recording this at about 9 p.m. on Monday evening. Welcome to Tuesday's show. Let's jump into Rob Williams. What did Rob do last year? Well, how did Rob wind up in Portland? He was part of the second portion of the Damian Lillard trade after the Blazers acquired Drew Holiday. He never reported, and they flipped him to Boston in exchange for a couple draft picks, a Warriors pick in 2024, a Boston pick in 2029, and 2 veterans, Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams. Malcolm Brogdon has since moved on, and Rob Williams is still on the roster. And he's still on the roster with some uncertainty because last season he only appeared in 6 games. He averaged 6.8 points, 6.3 boards, 1.2 assists, and 1.2 blocks across those 6 games, playing 19.8 minutes a night. In the very little we saw of Robert Williams, it was clear that he could do some stuff. Like, you're playing 20 minutes a night, not even, and you're getting a block and a steal each night. 7 and 7. He had 10 and 7 in the opener. He had a 3-block game in his 3rd game of the season. Like, dude has juice. Like, he has a little bit of juice. Like, he's in the last 2 seasons, he only played 41 games, but his last full season, he was one of the best defensive players in the league. For my money, he probably should have won Defensive Player of the Year. And I think you saw shades of that. But in preseason, in training camp, he had a knee-to-knee collision with Jeremy Grant. When he came over from Boston, the Blazers held him out of the first preseason game because they said he was still ramping up. And that was always a red flag to me because, who was also available in that game was Malcolm Brogdon. And it's like, well, if Rob needs some ramp-up time and Malcolm doesn't, like, what's going on here? And then Chauncey Billups told reporters that prior to the game against a preseason game against Phoenix, he said, like, oh, Rob will bang knees with Jeremy Grant. It was pretty bad, and he's not going to play tonight. And so then he misses preseason. It's like, dang, okay, we haven't seen him, but like, you think of knee-to-knee contact as like a bad bruise, right? It can be worse than that, but a bad bruise. But then, he's available on night 1. He plays the first 2 games of the season. The third game is the second night of a back-to-back. He sits out that game. Okay, that makes sense. A little bit of caution, right? He's not playing a ton of minutes. He's just going to be a backup because of the nature of the roster and the team having acquired DeAndre Ayton, right? It's just his role makes sense. So he plays in a couple more games, 3 more games, and then on November 5th, in game against Memphis, he collides knee-to-knee with Jaren Jackson Jr., limps off the court, clearly a big, serious limp, like the type of like straight back to the locker room walk where it's like, that's not good. And he's had so many knee issues over the last few seasons during his career that it's like it's impossible not for your brain to go there to the worst, right? It's like, dang, that's really not what you want to see from Robert Williams. And the team announced that, or I believe it was broken by a news broker, but eventually announced by the team that on November 13th, about a week later, that Robert Williams had surgery. This was to repair a torn ligament and a dislocated patellar tendon in his right knee. So it's a dislocated kneecap and a torn ligament in his right knee. Most of his trouble had been on the other side, had been on his left knee. This was on his right knee, something new. Then Rob Will didn't talk to the media all season long. This is, as I mentioned in the previous show, Blazers sometimes do stuff a little bit weird. He doesn't I don't think he necessarily has to by league rules, but typically it's like you just bring him out so he can do it one time and be like, yep, bummer. But he came back around, he's away from the team for a long time in the early parts of his rehab, came back around the team towards the end of the season, and then spoke on the penultimate game of the season, Blazers' final home game of the year, the home finale, spoke to the media, and he was very coy. He was very coy about sharing information about kind of where he was in his rehab, about whether he'd been cleared to play 5-on-5, about whether he would even be available in the fall. He was very, very coy. Not the type of, someone who's dealt with a bunch of injuries. He's just not going to have bravado, right? He's not going to be like, I'm going to be back and I'm going to be great. He's learned enough and dealt with enough stuff that he knows not to, he's being cautious for a reason, coy for a reason. But it didn't, I was in the room for that particular conversation, and I didn't come off feeling super confident about Rob Williams' availability heading forward. Hard to know, and it's hard, and I guess we'll find out next week when training camp happens, like if he's playing 5-on-5 and he's cleared to go and sort of his availability. But I would say based on his social media presence and what he said at that final media day, or his first and only media appearance for the Blazers, it's like really hard to know what his availability will be. I would say it remains a question. So let's talk real quick. What's best and worst case scenario for Rob Williams? Best case scenario is that he's an NBA player again. Period. He's able to play in, the majority of games, let's call it 65 plus games, and he looks like himself. I don't think the best case scenario is that Rob Williams comes back and is the defensive player of the year, right? He's going to be a backup even if he's fully healthy. But the best case scenario for Rob Williams is that he's available to play, capable to play, and he shows flashes of what he can be. And as he gets into the season, he continues to be able to be available and continues to build up and get better. And he becomes very intriguing in one of two ways, either as a potential trade partner, or trade target for other teams, or it's like, oh, this dude can play, and the Blazers are happy to have him because the point of having a basketball team, for the most part, is to get good players on that basketball team in order to help you win. The best case scenario is that Rob Williams is Rob Williams, and we talk about him as a basketball player and not as someone who is dealing with the challenges of not being able to play basketball. The worst case scenario is that he's these are worst case scenario within reason and without injury. So we're not going to talk about injuries with Rob Will. It's obviously part of it. It's the undertone of all of this. You get it, but that's just not what this. It's not how I do these things. The worst case scenario is he's just not quite there. And then the conversation about Rob Williams is not the basketball player that he is. It's the basketball player that he used to be and the basketball player that you hope that he is in the future. But when you talk about his production, you are not talking about the present. You are talking about timelines in the past and timelines hopefully in the future. The worst case scenario is that Robert Williams' eventual value as a basketball player is theoretical and not functional. The worst case scenario is that you are talking about a Rob Williams to come and a Rob Williams that has been, because the Rob Williams that is just not the same player. That's the worst case scenario. He's missed a lot of time. It's probably take him a little while to ramp up. I'm sure he will not play big minutes, and let's talk role and expectations for him real quick. He's a backup regardless of his role. Like DeAndre Ayton's your starting center. So I think Rob's role is a little bit questionable. You draft Donovan Clingan 7 overall, and you're the quality of team that the Blazers are, and the age of the team the Blazers are. It'd be weird not to try to find Donovan Clingan minutes every single night of the year. Not big minutes, but 15 plus. Started at try to get him on the court for 2 7-minute shifts a half. That's 14 minutes, and then if he can do more, let him do more. But I think you really want Donovan Clingan to play. If Clingan plays, Rob Williams is 10th, and then they would have to play together. And boy, is that a funky, weird fit if they play together. I think that's not ideal for either of them, but it might just be. Or you have to do some sort of interesting, some nights it's a Rob Williams night. Some nights it's a Donovan Clingan night, and you kind of have to figure out what that looks like. I don't think that's ideal either, but there is Rob Williams is better than Donovan Clingan. Certainly he's been much better than Clingan projects to be in year one. So if he's healthy and can go, it would be odd for the Blazers to not let Robert Williams play games. But they're in a position where they have to make some strange decisions about what their future and their presence. I think it would be a mistake to have Rob Williams soak up all of the backup center minutes with a healthy Donovan Clingan watching. Certainly they could. That's a choice they could make. It's not a choice I would make. And maybe Robert Williams plays, to begin the season, he plays twice a week. But if he's quote unquote healthy and he still has to miss a game a week for load management, then he's not healthy, right? That's just not how it works. But also maybe there's a world in sports science where, Rob Williams is not a guy who can play 70 games, but he is a guy who can play 55 really good games, and you have to figure out what those 55 games look like, which brings to the obvious part of this. Robert Williams is probably more valuable on a good team than he is for the Portland Trail Blazers, but only if he's healthy and can play. So part of the confusion about does he play or does Donovan Clingan play is if he can play and he is good, you kind of want him to get out there and have 20, 25 good games prior to Christmas, which is roughly the 30-game mark. So other teams can say, yeah, we would like to trade for this dude, right? To have some value on the trade market. Healthy, good Rob Williams is a really valuable trade chip. Totally unknowable, injured Rob Williams has very, very, very limited trade value. So the Blazers are in this weird place where it's do they build up and chase Robert Williams' trade value so the New York Knicks need to trade for him, or do they balance development? Rob Williams' role is one of the strangest ones. It's one of the most confusing ones. It's probably the only guy on the team where I'm I don't really know what they're going to do because they have a variety of options. Part-time player, a player who plays right over a rookie, or a player who shares the court with a rookie, but in a lineup that just is horrendously configured second unit that puts both Williams and Clingan and probably Scoot Henderson in all not great, not ideal developmental spots. It's an interesting challenge. Okay, let's talk Duop Reath, another Blazers big man. Join me in that third segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about FanDuel, America's number one sports book. FanDuel wants you to have a little bit of fun this NFL season. We're here. I recorded this after the double Monday Night Football games, but we're going to have NFL games coming back next week. And if you're watching the games, if you're saying okay, It's week 4. I'm locked in. I'm ready to roll at the sort of 25% mark, the quarter pole of the NFL season. Well, America's number one sportsbook wants you to get in on the action with live bets. And not just live bets, but you can open the app and you can check out the latest stats. You can view play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you're making your bets. The app is going to have all of it there so you can be an informed bettor and do your thing and get in on the action. And right now you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So if you're a new user to FanDuel, go check it out. Place a $5 bet and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's FanDuel.com. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. We're keeping it rolling with more player previews. We're going to talk Duop Reath. Duop was maybe the best story of the Blazers season, and I'm going to remove the maybe and say Duop Reath was the best story of the Blazers season. He starts the year as a two-way player, and they put him down in the G League, and he drops 37 one night in the G League, and they say, you're too good for this. Come sit on the bench. You're never going back to the minors. You are too good for this. But the Blazers were a little bit full, right? The roster was a little bit full. You've got DeAndre Ayton, you've got Robert Williams. Those dudes are just going to play ahead of a guy who played well in summer league and earned a two-way contract, and he's just like he's an end of the bench guy. So he spends the first 8 games on the inactive list, and then Robert Williams gets hurt, and the Blazers give literally one first half shift, 5 minutes of Moses Brown in a game against the Kings, and they said, we're not doing that again. And Duop Reath played every single game for the rest of the year, save one. Duop Reath missed the first 8 games. Then he missed one game. He missed a couple for injury, but when he was available, he only got one DNP CD all year against the Warriors, a team that went small, so they couldn't really pull it off with what Duop brings to the table. Duop Reath went from a two-way player out of the rotation watching, went to the G League to begin the season, to a dude who played every single night he was available, sans one the entire year. A guy who left his home country in South Sudan, had to leave as a refugee and move to Western Australia, and grew up in Perth. Chase the dream all over the world, starting at playing at LSU and then playing professionally in Lebanon and in China and back in Australia, and gets an opportunity with the Blazers and seizes it to the tune of 9 points, 3.7 boards, and 1 assist across 17.9 minutes. He shot 46% from the floor and 35.9% from 3 on 3.6 attempts per game, and 74% from the free throw line. His NBA debut, Duop Reath took 8 3-pointers in 14 minutes. They played the Lakers. He gets in the game, and he's like, I'm about to show y'all what I can do. Hit 3 of 8 threes, but 8 threes in 14 minutes. 8 threes in 14 minutes. He's like, if I see the rim, this bad boy's going up. 11 3-3 in that NBA debut. He had 25 and 9 off the bench the week of Christmas, December 26th against the Kings. Him and Scoot had 2 monster games off the bench, and the Blazers beat the Kings. He was just solid. His shooting really tailed off the final 10 games. Shot under 25% from 3, but for the most of the year, he was like an above average 3-point shooter. He has more off the dribble game than anyone gives him credit for, and by that I mean like defenders, because he's not a leaper. He's a shooter, and so he'll show the ball, and guys will he'll just raise his eyebrows, and guys will maybe leave their feet or get off balance, and Duop has some off the dribble, like attacking the rim game. He struggles a little bit on defense. He's power forward size, but that position doesn't exist really in the league. But he has to play center because of his lateral quickness, but he's just slow, and he's not a leaper. Like, he has some real offensive utility, but he's limited enough on defense that I think he's always going to be a backup. But to go from where he was to playing every single night that he was available, and he played so many nights that by the time they got to the All-Star break, the Blazers converted his 2-way deal to a guaranteed contract that included a full guarantee for this season, and its next season is non-guaranteed. But he made himself some money, millions of dollars, by just doing what he does. I'm telling you, the best story from the Blazers season a year ago. So what's the best case scenario for Duop Reath in his second season with the Blazers, his second season in the NBA at 28? It's that he's undeniable when he gets his opportunity. He's going to start the season out of the rotation. He is not going to play on night 1 unless something very odd happens. But he's the way it works in the NBA is you'll get your chances. Somebody gets hurt, somebody gets sick, and the best case scenario for Duop Reath is when he gets that chance, he's undeniable. And just like last season when it's like, well, this dude's got to play. It's the same thing because the shooting is back to being an above league average shooter on some volume. He is a skill set that the Blazers just don't have. A stretchy big man who can make some plays off the bounce. His utility with that unique skill set on the Blazers' particular roster makes him undeniable. The best case scenario for Duop Reath is that when he gets his chances, the Blazers have to give him more opportunities because he is too good to sit back down. The best case scenario for Duop Reath is that he creates a logjam at center and question marks about what they're going to do because this dude needs to play, and Blazers end up playing some funky dunky big lineups because Duop Reath deserves to be on the court because when he gets his chances, he shows you that you can't just sit him back down. The worst case scenario is that he spends a lot of the season watching. With DeAndre Ayton still on the team and the team investing the 7th overall pick in Donovan Clingan and the presence of Robert Williams, who we just spoke about in the second segment, Duop Reath is the 4th center on the roster. He can't really play power forward. Like, he can't. I know that people see a dude who shoots threes and they say power forward. We all have that friend. A big guy who shoots threes and they just yell power forward. He can't do that. He just does not have the lateral quickness to guard fours in the NBA. Plus, there's just not a ton of minutes even at the 4 for the Blazers. Jeremy Grant's going to play a bunch. Denny Avdia is probably going to play some minutes at the 4. Tumani Kamara is going to play some minutes at the 3 and 4. Does Duop Reath trump Jabari Walker at that spot? Like, it's not like there's natural minutes. The worst case scenario is that Duop Reath spends a lot of the season watching. He spends a lot of the season as an interesting deep bench option, but never gets the opportunity. And when the opportunity comes, he isn't undeniable. He's merely an intriguing option that's not quite productive enough to be inevitable and to be undeniable. So he spends most of the season as a spectator. The worst case scenario is that after getting one DNP his entire rookie season, one DNP CD, did not play coach's decision, he racks him up early. He racks him up early when in year 2 because of the nature of the roster. That's the worst case scenario. I mentioned role and expectations in that little spiel there, but yeah, he's outside of the rotation. Like, you just use your logic, use that lizard brain of yours. DeAndre Ayton's your starting center. Donovan Clingan is your backup center. Rob Williams is the other option at backup center if he's healthy. And Rob Williams there's more incentive, as mentioned earlier in the show, like more incentive kind of, if Rob can play, get him out and let him play because he has trade value. Duop Reath is deep bench insurance, and he has a unique skill set. If you need shooting, he's the big that provides that. I know, like, theoretically, Donovan Clingan is going to do that, but the dude shot 58% from the free throw line as a college sophomore. I don't think he's going to be acing threes in year 1. He might get there eventually, but I don't think he's going to be shooting, 4 a game and 36% from 3 like Duop did. And Duop was shooting 38% from 3 for much of the year until a really dreadful final 10 games of the regular season when the Blazers' context was a little bit worse. I think Reath is, my expectations for him is that I will always root for him because I really like him. I like him as a person, and a little bit I've interacted with him. I love his story. I'm a root for him. I'm a Duop Reath fan. I'll root for him, but he's just naturally going to be outside the rotation, and that's kind of how it works sometimes in the league. It's like you get your chances. You're either going to make the best of them or you're not, and sometimes, like, you can make the best of them and the team has just, like, different goals, right? His contract is fully guaranteed for this season. Certainly he could be included in a trade, but he is, his next season is non-guaranteed with a late guarantee date, like August. So we'll see. Certainly that late guarantee date does sometimes make guys an appealing trade partner when you get to when you get to February, because it's like, oh yeah, throw this dude in because we can keep him on the roster and kind of make a decision down the line. Like, you can have you have a little more flexibility if it's August 1st, I believe, according to Spot Track, the friend of the program. Shout out to Keith Smith. That's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow's show is a mailbag episode. I actually already had it planned out. So, because I have a bunch of old mailbag questions, I was going to go with that tonight until at 8:15 the Blazers broke their TV news. 8:15 on Monday. Shout out to them. So tomorrow's show is going to be a mailbag episode. You can send me a question, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com, but I'll probably will be used in the next mailbag episode. So what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube, free and available on all your platforms. Tell your friends about the program. Blazers basketball starts in less than a week. Let's go. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.